All right. Well, thanks for joining. Hopefully, you were all able to watch my pre-recording. That being said, why don't we dive into the questions? Scott, you've got the first one.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for doing this, Sam. These are not market segments I know that well, so it helps me to get educated. So thanks for laying it out. Very, very helpful. My question was about buyers and users. Our sales and marketing mostly talk to dev organizations, and I know we want to add more value to security, more pure security focused teams over time. So help me understand which buyer and user personas each of these areas serve, and do we have the go-to-market motion lined up behind the things that you're building now, or is there a gap there? At one point, there was a bit of a gap with some of the things we were trying to do, and you shifted your roadmap. So help me understand where you think we are now.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's an area that was missing from the presentation. So I went ahead and added slide 8 to help visualize that a little bit better.
Okay.
Um, the whole presentation I broke into those three groups: container scanning, the pipeline aspect of it, security orchestration, and then the the production security, the container network host and container scanning in production. So container scanning, the pipeline aspect of it, that probably aligns more with the rest of secure than protect, to be quite honest. It makes sense to have it here while we're working on adding the ability to scan in production. But that's primarily aligned with development teams, DevOps teams, AppSec teams. Those are all teams that we target today as an organization. So we're very well aligned already as a company from a GTM perspective. Um, you know, we've already got all the things in place to make the most of that opportunity.
Okay.
Um, Security, actually, why don't I come back to security orchestration? So the production side of things, that used to be all of Defend, and that was the piece where we were targeting a new persona that we were not optimized to go out and sell to, specifically security operations teams. So they're different from AppSec teams. These security operations teams own security in production. They don't work a lot with development organizations. It's very rare for our sales teams to have any contacts there today. They're just not the people that we're talking to. They're not the people we're selling to, which means that it's harder to gain traction there, but it's also an opportunity for us to expand in the future. That area we've moved away from investing in that area. So we are still investing some, but we've shifted the majority of our investment out. That was part of that defend to protect realignment. So we're keeping it around as a potential area that we might want to go into in the future, but it's not being heavily resourced today.
Got it.
And then security orchestration, that piece spans, that's really an overlay category. It spans protect, secure, potentially, any secure policies that might be added in access down the road or security alerts. So that one covers, it spans across personas. I would say that the AppSec teams are probably going to be our primary users once we release, um, just because that aligns most with all the secure functionality today is where we're seeing the most demand anyway. If we did start selling, getting more usage of container host and network security, I would expect that the SecOps teams would use the security orchestration piece for those components.
Okay. Super helpful. So I'm on slide 8. Let me make sure I understand. So DevOps and development, we clearly target application security. You think we target that pretty well today with our current application security testing offering, and so container scanning and security orchestration will add value there. SecOps we don't have a clear path to, but we have a minimal investment there to plant some seeds. On the security orchestration side, is there any chance that that can bridge to and create interest in the stuff in pink there, CNS, CHS, container scanning? Or would they only use orchestration if they start adopting the thing below it? Help me understand if the security orchestration is possibly a bridge to that new audience.
Yeah, so um, our potential there for a bridge between the two is, it's not a super solid foundation to build on, but I think we do have some opportunities. Container scanning is probably the biggest opportunity that we have there.
Okay.
Um, when we were defend and not protect, and working on, talking to customers about protecting things in production, the thing that came up the most was scanning containers in production. That was by far the number one feature request. The people we were talking to didn't really care about our network firewall. They didn't care about our IDS, IPS, and provided we weren't talking to the SecOps teams, because they're always very interested in those things. But when we're talking to GitLab customers, most of the time it's either a DevOps or AppSec team. And so just from what I've seen and heard, I think that scanning containers in production is our most likely, first foot in the door, where there's some shared responsibility between, um, AppSec and DevOps, and the lines get a little bit blurry when you're scanning the containers in production for whatever reason. And I think the security orchestration piece has some potential there too. If we can increase our container scanning usage and adoption, and then have them start using security orchestration, you know, that could also be a foot in the door. So it's not a clean entryway. It's more like, we're prying open a crack rather than, opening the door wide into that area. I think if we do decide to really go after that SecOps market, it's going to require a more concerted effort, across GitLab, with go-to-market changes, potentially pricing and packaging changes. I mean, I think we're going to have to change our sales motions some too to really capitalize on it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So
they
play back. So container scanning may have some applicability if we could do it in production, and
Yep.
that might get the attention of those teams, but it's a, maybe a weak bridge. All right. Thank you, David.
yeah, I was just gonna add one thing for you too, Scott. Like I see the security orchestration category, because we're starting with the developer persona and the AppSec team persona first. It as we knock that out of the park and make that like a key component of our product. I like how Sam has put the SecOps persona stuff that would be like within that same screen, whether that's like a different tab view or whatever, that I can see our AppSec internal champions kind of like tapping their coworker on the shoulder on that and being like, hey, did you see you could write policies in here for your Kubernetes protection? Or hey, did you see that I get alerts in here, but you can be getting alerts too on potential attacks. I think that'll get that internal champion helping build that bridge more than us necessarily needing to like figure out how to just knock down that wall.
Okay. Thanks very much. Appreciate it, Sam. Thanks, David.
Just one
Another
other
question.
note on that, while we're talking about that, I would say that, when and if we do invest more in insider threat inside of GitLab, that would typically fall under that purview of the security operations team,
Okay.
as well. So, if we decide to build out those capabilities, that could also garner some interest, that they go in there, they're reviewing the insider threats, in any detections that we've found there. And then at the same time, they say, oh, hey, I could be applying my, IDS, IPS rules here, or my network firewall rules here. And maybe I don't need this other product that I already have to do that. So, the market is large. Customers are paying good money for a lot of products to solve those things today. We're just not connected with the right folks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Related to that, Sam, leading in, I know you already written up a good bit of response, which is awesome. So how's the feedback been from current customers for existing features and interest from beta customers lined up for the features we haven't launched yet? A lot of this is new. A lot of this space is new for GitLab. So actively soliciting feedback from current and future users, I think, will be key to get their feedback, make sure it's fitting their needs, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I just broke it down into those same 3 segments. So container scanning piece, I've seen, a moderate degree of interest. Mostly that's existing customers either complaining about some, challenges that we have with the current solution because we haven't done much in it in the last 8 months since it moved over to Protect. So we're just ramping up our investment there. Or it's customers who are pushing to have it integrated a little bit more tightly with the registry. So, that's a product we've already released. I think it's a viable maturity. So we've got some good feedback coming in from our existing user base there. Security orchestration, as far as new areas, we're getting a lot of feedback. I mean, it's coming in pretty strong. Customers are very excited about what we're doing there. I'm talking with at least 1 customer a week, oftentimes more, and always the response is extremely positive. I tell them, look, what we're doing here, it's probably going to be a year before we can really give you everything you want. And they say, that's okay. I'm just excited about where you're headed. Like, if I have to wait a year to get all of that awesomeness, of course I want it sooner, but it's worth waiting for. So we're getting a ton of great feedback from existing customers. I'm in the middle of a problem validation right now where we're talking with people who are not customers. So we get, the other half of that coin of, users and non-users. So yeah, we've got a lot of feedback coming in all the time there. I'm happy to drop a link. I don't know if you have a license to Dovetail, but we're tracking all of that in Dovetail right now.
I don't, but actually, Sam, it'd be great, later on if you could get me connected to that. That'd be great. I've actually never heard of Dovetail before, so learned something new today.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And then the last one, I think we've talked about a good deal already. So just to summarize, we haven't had very much good customer feedback for CHS and CNS and container scanning. The feedback we have had, more often than not, we end up talking with the AppSec team instead of the SecOps team. And so, their interest is, mediocre at best, and usually they're interested in scanning containers in production. When we've gone outside of GitLab and targeted, like problem validation and solution validation, where we're reaching out to people who are not customers, obviously there's a strong market there. We've talked with people who are using competitor products in this area today. They're just not using GitLab and they're not really engaged with their development teams. So it's a huge market, but it is a new market for GitLab. And so we've got to treat it as such. And, our expectations need to be in line with a new market rather than like a feature that we're adding to our existing product or that would target our existing customer base.
So, suggesting how we get, quote, connected to the demand. Many who make security decisions don't know about our security features. Not all, of course, I know we've talked about this in the past, but you kind of alluded to this earlier, and this is, of course, easier asked than answered, but I figured I'd throw it out there to you and David and others who may have thoughts on this.
Yeah, so I have a little bit of an insight, Wayne. Like, we actually just had the product leadership weekly meeting an hour ago, and one of the items that we discussed in there was making sure go-to-market is getting the word out. Obviously, it's not all on them, but I do feel that, and I think Scott, like you messaged it really well during the meeting, that like if that is our third land motion, and we want sales to be able to lead with it, because by the way, for those who are not aware, like we actually do win on just security as a brand new sale to customers today, where that wasn't true a year ago. We needed to make sure they're continuing that messaging strongly, so that way it's easier for sales to get into the door. I also think some of what you've been doing, Wayne, has been great. Getting blogs out there. Like I actually am speaking at a conference in an hour and a half. to talk about this. Like us continuing to do that's also going to help a lot. And then I think the last thing is just internal education. I think that there is still some question as to whether or not we are just a Me Too checkbox or if we're actually a legitimate security player. And we're addressing that kind of two ways. One, Scott wanted security to be part of the scope keynote next week. So I'm the last component of the product keynote, which I think is good. It's good 20 minutes on just security and selling Ultimate with it. And then we're doing things like PM Shadow Program, and like Karen's on this call right now and she's been shadowing Sam. So I think between those things, we'll have that three-pronged approach to address it. But it's definitely a team effort.
Yeah, I would just add, definitely agree with all of that. I think when it comes to the security operations team, though, it's a little bit of a different story. So I would say all of that's true for like security orchestration and container scanning. And to some degree, it's true as well for like the CNS and CHS stuff. But if we really want to fully get connected to the demand there on the production side of security, I think there's going to be a little bit more of a, right now GitLab sales reps are going out and they're talking to development teams. They're talking to DevOps teams, right? That's who they go in the door. That's who all of their Rolodex contacts are with. And so if we're going to really address those areas, we've got to find a way to either have a small segment of the sales force reach out to SecOps teams, or all of the sales force reach out to SecOps teams a little bit. I mean, unless we actually start selling to them and targeting them, I think it's going to be a hard uphill battle to see significant revenue. But the way we're doing our strategy right now, we're not investing a lot there. That's not a primary focus. So I think it's okay if we're not connected to the demand right now. I view this time more as like an opportunity to build out some core product fundamentals and just get things in place so that, maybe in a year or 2 years, when the company is in a better position to expand to that market, we've got a huge head start and we've already got some product capabilities that we can bring to the table.
Yeah, I really like that approach. Wayne, I think we were just talking to marketing. There's going to be 3 big themes. One is CI/CD. The other is DevOps platform. So positioning ourselves as a broad platform, and then GitOps. And underneath the platform, DevSecOps is probably going to be the number one sales play, to use their lingo. And that's where we'll position ourselves to compete with the application security testers and tout our application security testing capabilities. So just so you know, that's how marketing is thinking about it.
That's great. Yeah, and this applies to more than, of course, protect and secure. So a little bit of a call to action. So David, you mentioned blogs and speaking engagements and things like that, which is great that we participated. Tiago did one on Unfiltered that actually the team decided to move to the main blog on security, which was great. So call to action to Zamir and Alexander and Mehmet and Mihal, if you have blog ideas on that on anything, but especially that talk about security, and I think that would be it'd be a great thing to do. And it's a lot of fun creating these unfiltered blogs. They get a lot of them. They're easy-ish to do, and you don't have to quote unquote get them approved because they're on unfiltered. So, but they still go out there in a big way. So I'd encourage you to do it if you're interested.
Yeah, thanks Wayne and David and Sam Kerr for getting creative and scrappy about marketing our stuff. We're, I would expect next year DevSecOps is probably a headliner, and so we're on the way up, and anything we can do to help add some fuel to the marketing fire is really helpful right now.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the questions and comments and participation today. Is there anything else before we wrap up the meeting?
I would just add one thing to what Wayne was saying to the members of his team on the call. One of the things that I've been really impressed by are the time when you all take the time to make like a 5-minute video showing something in the UI or showing it working. Like one of the things that resonated really well, like Wayne did a demo with Philippe and one of our customers on protect features at virtual commit. And that video is really popular because it really shows things working. So if you're not wanting to write a blog, because I'm not always keen on writing blogs, there's other ways to kind of do what he's asking for. And our video views are going up like month over month on our security stuff. So that's another good way for you to kind of show like, here's a project I'm working on and here's what value it provides. Alan did that with some of the security orchestration stuff, and that video did get a decent amount of views.
And I know I can't help but to mention again that Zamir was the magician, the strings behind the scene on the demos that Philippe and I did. So thanks again, Zamir. I didn't know that video is still popular, but thanks again, Zamir, for making that happen.
Thanks, Sam.
Well, thanks
Have a great
everyone.
day, y'all.
Time
Bye.
today.